Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to QModo's safety webinar, where the title is Building a Successful Safety Program. We're honored to have some great guests with us this morning, and we're going to let each of them introduce themselves. I'm Ed Zunzunegui. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at QModo, and along with a few other QModo folks, we'll be moderating this. But Steve, why don't you start us off with introductions?
Sure. I'm an electrical engineer and have been in several industries, primarily the power generation and controls. And in those industries, spent most of my career in the lockout, tagout world, developing products, procedures, methods, and systems. And it was kind of in the right place, right time when OSHA was giving birth to their regulation in the early 80s, and since then have been working in the product area and procedural area, so can bring some expertise there.
Thank you, Steve. Bryce, will you go next, please?
Yeah, I'm Bryce Tullis. I'm a facilities operations manager. Excuse my voice is a little hoarse today, but I'll try and bear through it here. I've been in the trade industry straight out of high school as a service technician, operating foreman, operating engineer, for all aspects of residential to industrial to commercial. What really interested me in getting in this field is the opportunity for growth and the technology that's, really kind of streamlining our industries right now. From there, I've had the opportunity to fly across the country, setting up different facility maintenance operation departments. And I just really look forward to being on this call with you guys today.
Thank you, Bryce. And Nels, please.
Sure. My name is Nels Benda. I'm an electrical engineer as well. I'm the business development and president of Benda Engineering, a company that Steve and I started together. We've developed many technologies surrounding lockout tagout, and we've been working on bringing them to markets. One thing that we've always felt is a good fit, which is why we're working with QModo strongly on this, is to bring lockout tagout into a SaaS program, such that we can achieve full compliance through the power of software.
Great, thank you. Sam, will you go next, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Peng, and I'm a 30-year veteran in the construction and building operations space. Safety has always been a big focus on all my projects. And I work with the internal development teams and the external clients on implementations as a subject matter expert.
Thank you, Sam. And last but not least, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Jeff Twardzik. I'm the president and original founder at QModo. One of the things that we are very proud of at QModo is listening to our customers and building to their needs. It's been a successful model. And the one thing that is continuously boiled up is safety, and how to present that safety to the guys out in the field doing the work, making sure they're safe, the company is in compliance, and all of those things. So we're excited that we're building out that module in QModo. We're aggressive with that. I'm really excited about the talent that's on this call and the expertise. I'm really look forward to listening to them. But I guess the way that I want to kick this off is, what's the biggest pain that you've seen in your industries and your experience when it comes to safety and trying to deliver that to the people out in the field and everything, in compliance and those kinds of things. So I think I'll start with Steve. If there's one thing that you could keep in, that would boil up as, that's the biggest pain point. We'd love to hear that and hear from the rest of the panelists too.
Okay. A little bit of detail about the lockout tagout, Jeff, is what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
What we've done is we've taken the regulation and we try to certainly understand it. We understand it with great expertise, but what we want to do is bring that into facilities and make it turn it into a culture of safety, where take the regulation stuff out and just simply say, let's drive to the things that make our business work the safest for all of our people. And then what we've done with that is we've laced in the regulatory pieces so that we're ensuring regulation is met. But we first start with how can we operate a business in the most safe fashion? And while all the time the regulation looms in the background, we make that a very easy piece because of the tools in the software where there's an ongoing program maintenance that becomes the dashboard type things for the managers to see and implement. They can have forecasts, they can have planning around the program maintenance. We then turn that into I always call it a war room where we'll take that viable material, we'll come and we'll plan our work orders and plan our lockouts around a serious review of the people that will be involved. And then we turn that into an action. And that action is by the properly trained people with the proper toolboxes, with the proper knowledge, and we teach them how that they can implement their lockouts in the safest fashion. And the beauty of the program is that we're able to give not only just visual roadmaps, but we can pull in from any resource that we want. That as proper program maintenance, we're building these programs that will be used over and over again and revised as needed. We then implement the fourth phase, which is now the closeout of the work order and the closeout of the lockout. That's an important piece because there's notifications, there's documentation closure, because what we're focused on is we're focused on bringing all this great information that we've just implemented, used, modified, whatever that is, and we will then park that in a historical file for future use. That future use is that we ensure continuous improvement of the program.
Yeah, Steve, I really the biggest thing is being able to see what they're doing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing with you with Lockout, Tagout, and your expertise and where you came from and Nels, you have placards that are hanging on the equipment. That's great, but did they actually do the Lockout, Tagout, right? Did they actually go through the process? Did they document that they did it? And as a manager or anybody else that's in that building and you're trying to keep everybody safe, what's going on in my building? So trying to give them that visual, that's probably the biggest pain in the Lockout, Tagout world right now, right? Is that single pane of glass where I know what's going on in my building and what's happening, and are the people trained and are they doing the right thing?
And you know, Jeff, as I've been in the industry for 40 plus years, I'll walk on into a plant and I can tell you right away whether lockout's part of their culture or not, or if it is part of their culture, is it happening properly? That's by visual tags and locks and notifications and things. And I can almost guarantee you when I walk into a plant and see placards hanging, I always call that window dressing, because the placard is a document, it's the procedure, but I've so many times out of not that I've seen the revision dates out of date, and part of the way that you keep the program viable is you have an active group of trained people, your maintenance guys, the active troop of people that are reviewing on an annual basis and just ensuring that they're ready when called in action. Because otherwise, if they're called in action and the people aren't trained or the procedure's not viable, you may be subjecting your people to undue hazards.
And Steve, if I can drill down on that just a little bit more, it seems like, you know, and Jeff, you kind of alluded to this in your intro, you want everybody to be safe. That's the end goal. The regulations are a way to monitor that. And it seems like from what you're saying that some people will adopt the regulation, but maybe not the safety piece as much, right? It's window dressing. You know, do any of you want to talk a little bit more examples of that you've seen and what companies have done to maybe correct that?
Well, what just a thought on that, and thank you on that comment, is you'll see like they pound their chest. We are lockout, tagout people, and great. That's a great statement. It's a corporate policy and all those things. But what happens when you get in the trenches and it requires training of the people and documentation of the people, and that they're really and that the management knows they're trained rather than, gee, I wonder if they're trained. Because now the complaints we see are that the change of personnel is so frequent. It's hard to keep employees in some cases, and when that happens, safety professionals are like pulling their hair out because they don't know if people are trained. Rather than, when you walk into the front gate of a facility and you go to the guard station and they say, before you can enter, we have to show you some safety videos, and we're a safety glass facility. We wear hard hats, They go through their list of things, and all of a sudden you start to feel like this is a place that pays attention, because all those little things are part of the training modules that are needed to create the human asset to be viable. And Nels and I use that word human asset and machine asset because those are the things that require some work as the programs are in place.
Yeah, that's a great look at Lockout Tagout, Steve. Bryce, I'm super excited, and I'm sure that there's 100 things you could talk about that were pains from you, because you've got this great view, like you had said, starting out wrenching on stuff, right? You're the service guy, you're in the field, you're doing that work, and you've worked your way up to manage big teams now. So you've got all these views at it. But if there was one or two things that you could talk about, like that's the biggest pain when it came to safety, what would that be in your journey?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeff. And I'm gonna piggyback off of Steve's point there. Safety culture. I mean, that's a big thing that I see is, a lot of corporations might say, yeah, we have this safety culture, but you start getting in the trenches and you realize, well, there's a big gap in knowledge or material that could be utilized here. And that kind of leads me to my next biggest pain point that I've noticed, even training new management teams, is how accessible do we have the safety material to our technicians or our people in the field, right? For instance, many corporations have multiple shifts, right? You got a day shift, you have a night shift. Sometimes those night shifts might not have the safety directors or management teams with the technicians all the time. So how do we locate that safety material in the event that we need to lock something out, or there is a lockout tagout event that's critical, right? And just from experience, most of the time you might have 2 binders in the safety office. You might have 5 down in the facilities office, but how easy is that for your technician to go get, right? In a critical event that he needs to shut something down or she needs to shut something down, where can they easily reference that material, right? We might have had annual trainings, right? But how much retention is that going to give if the material is not with them 24/7, right? So that's a big gap that I see. And I think QModo is, that's what makes me excited is we have this opportunity to provide the necessary training and tools to our people in the trenches that can make sure we're actually building a successful safety culture. So Ed, or Jeff, I think that's something that, that's probably my biggest pain point that I've seen over the years. And that's why I'm excited about this QModo module.
Yeah, and I think the fit is really good because right from day one, I mean, that's our mission, right? To deliver information to the people in the field to do their jobs safely, efficiently.
Exactly.
So the safety module, it's just natural for it to move in there and have that stuff at their fingertips. And to round it out, Nels, I'd love to hear your point of view and what you see as some of the large pain points and what you've seen.
Sure. I think, so a lot of my prior work has been in compliance of various things to regulation, to test procedures, things like that. And one of the things that I think, bringing safety into the QModo system is to give the doers the confidence, and confidence being such a critical thing because you can go in and you can say this is what we require, but if you don't really know what that requirement actually means, and this is where bringing the data together so you kind of have a full picture of from a manager side, are the people trained, are they trained properly, have they gone through the necessary requirements for what we are needing them to understand, what's a hazard in the facility. And this is where, bringing the different training modules to directly to the user, requiring their use before they can, maybe step foot. It's up to the safety, the safety procedures that are established for that facility. From the manager's perspective, to understand that that they have confidence that their people have the right tools, but then also from the the doer's perspective. So you have these maintenance guys that maybe are coming in as a contractor. For them to understand what's currently in place at at a facility. So let's say a lockout tagout is in place, to know where that is, what they got to be aware of, and have confidence that what they're working on has been properly vetted. I think I just drill that word confidence as being a very important piece of it.
Awesome. And Sam, I'd actually love to hear from you too, buddy. It's, before Sam came to QModo, he was in the construction world and has a great background in this. So, what have you seen as the big pains?
The challenge is, working with different subcontractors, having them come onto the site and adopt the same safety culture that the companies that I've worked for previously maintained. So having the safety program in place where we do the orientation, but we make it a part of every day's work. And the difficulty is just the different levels of experience by the different foremen and the different companies. And then being able to have a tool that we can give them also. With QModo, we can add users and they'll have access to the same safety information that we have. So I believe that a lot of it was just trying to bring everybody to the same level was a challenge for me.
Okay, Bryce, follow-up question for you. Kind of during your intro, you talked about that you've worked to set up these, facilities teams. When you're doing that, I think it's safe to assume probably safety is a component of that. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, did you get pushback from management on some of the level of detail that you went into, or can you expand a little bit more on how that went?
Yeah. So, when I had the opportunity to go across and set up these new maintenance departments, the first thing we would do is look at, what safety policies do we have in place? A lot of times you might have a safety director or safety manager that we're working closely with. But again, that's something that a lot of this stuff just went in, binders, or we, kind of like Steve said, you'd have that window dressing up. But did the associates, did the people really understand what that meant? And I would say the pushback side of it, I wouldn't say it was pushback. I would just say there was just a lack of knowledge around what all needs to be, documented or understood when it goes into these regulations and trainings, right? So on that note, I think that's the biggest thing that really stood out to me is, can we streamline a process that, details all these things and regulations that we need to have documented, that we can train our guys and our people, and they don't have to run to 10 different managers or 15 different books around the building to reference material, right? So the biggest pushback that I think I got was trying to find a way to streamline a process that entails safety and lockout tagout all in one, right?
Gotcha.
One point I would add to Bryce
Please.
right there, which is awesome, is part of our training discipline is that we bring what we do in QModo to actually use it to train higher management.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the world of safety is if management's saying, yeah, we're these kind of people and that whole thing, but if they aren't totally bought into that program will have some struggles. And so what we'll do, and what I think is a beautiful point of like the QModo model that we have is, like, for instance, the lockout, where we'll create a lockout, and everything about that lockout is a lot of just unique, specific, focused data about the event that we're about to do. But what happens is, because of the way that we program to that, we're creating a pin, I'll call it a pin in the location of the map or the plant that the front office can pull up a QModo panel and look at everything that's happening in the floor plans of the facility, and giving management a chance to say, that is exactly what we're doing right now. Because it's not like we're trying to program so that screen can be active. We're programming because we want that pin to be as viable as it can and as protective as we can. And oh, by the way, all that other data is available for the other screens. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture.
Yeah, and Nels, just to bring you into the conversation along those lines, we talked a lot about the challenges. Where have you seen that someone maybe is doing it right? And then how could our new concept work in that environment to even better improve them?
Yeah, so I think, folks do things right. They follow the regulation. That certainly exists. There's procedure writing tools that exist out there. There's a lot of good tools to really find how to properly do a lockout on a machine. A lot of the machines will document that. Where there's a disconnect is especially when you have complex machinery. So take for example a power plant. There's a lot of pieces that kind of go together, but often you can't necessarily bring one section down without affecting the entire plant. So one thing that QModo does really well is it ties together the different pieces, what will affect other pieces, and really bring that information to the user to give a more complete look at it. So what this would do then is it also give from a safety perspective, give other hazards that may be present due to the machine being down. To have some knowledge of that would be a way that QModo definitely would bring it up beyond just the compliance piece of it. Compliance obviously being what's required, but to give more information, again, go back to the confidence piece so that the users really can understand, what's being affected, and what they're working on, to kind of maximize their efficiency there.
Okay. And Steve, this is a little bit for you, but everybody can weigh in afterwards. We talked a lot about training and how that's such a critical component to this, right? And giving time to train, right? Not just, hey, go do this on the weekends because we know what'll happen then, but time to train and really understand the material. We talked a little bit about competency on the equipment and how we see that impacting lockout, tagout.
Yes, some comments that I'll have on that is the level of the procedure will be that we lock up tightly with the customer on that. And the reason being is they operate their machinery every day. And when we come in and we'll either onboard, implement, or create the lockouts for them, there is some research that has to happen, and their participation in that will be very important. When we think of this is that at a time that a lockout procedure exists, they're the ones that are going to be using it. The owner of the plant will be using it, and so regulation requires that certain authorized people in the facility are the ones that are reviewing. And in that review, in-depth reviews happen by actually implementing the procedure. And and many times that we're trying to capture all those little training things that we can embed into the program so that, for instance, if they're closing a certain valve, we can bring in modules to show the actual valve in repositioning. And if there's some difficulties in locking it, some of the nuances possibly with locking, or even more so downline, if something can't be locked, what are the alternate means that are used to create the same safety as that of a hanging lock. And so there's some modules about that, being control systems, push buttons, lights, right on down the line, because the ultimate story is that we want to have the same protection as that of a lock hanging on a valve or a lock hanging on an isolation device.
Yeah, so again, the company then goes back to the training, right? They need to be trained not only on the safety, but on the equipment and, as well. That makes sense.
And, an interesting point on that is that, the training modules become very personal, intimate to the owner, that those things are about their plant. We can bring in generalized knowledge of different things that are happening, but when it comes to the intimate knowledge of their own facility, a training module needs to include those things that are intimate to them. And in doing that, we want to make them available at every point that they might be needed. So it really takes all of this flurrying data and plugs it in the right place so that when something is in action, like a procedure, they can easily find that data without searching. And that just goes back to the program maintenance part of it, way up at the front of the lockout program.
Yep. Bryce, anything to add to that, or?
No, I think Steve, spoke it quite well. A big part of, the struggles is part of his training. But again, what Steve said was, we're going to come in and document it to your building, right? There's a lot of training modules out there and a lot of safety videos that you might share with your teams annually that show, hey, this dial disconnect, this is how you shut off your equipment, but it's not your plant, right? Somebody else's. Someone took it maybe 10 years ago. So there's just a lot of different functionalities within your specific plant or your specific operation that's going to, adjust that training to the lockout tagout standpoint, and safety, right? And, I was on the, a little bit more background is I have a lot of experience in the supply chain logistics side, a lot of automation, a lot of robotics, right? There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces that, you shut one valve off, you might affect 3 miles down the line of conveyance and it might shut the whole plant down, right? So we'd have training modules, but they didn't actually show us that valve. It just said, here's the valve, here's how you lock it out, right? So again, just having that key functionality piece where it can be specific to your building that's just a huge win in my book. Just all the headaches and all the downs that I can think of. It's just, it's great.
Oh, great.
I think
Well,
the thing that just keeps
go ahead.
resonating with me, Ed, not to interrupt, as I'm listening to you guys speak, it just goes right back to our principle, right? This is a tool for the people in the field to do their job safer, right? The information, like you just said, Bryce, where does that person go when his hand's on the valve and he goes, should I shut this off or not? Right. Imagine just having that information in your hand at that moment to make the right decision, right? Empowering them with the knowledge of their safety program out in the field, doing the work. And then to Nels and Steve's point, as a manager, being able to look at a single pane of glass on my computer and see what everybody's doing, inside, and I've got control of my plant or my facility or whatever that is. So sorry for the interruption there, Ed, but it's just striking me that it's just such a great fit with our model.
Yeah. No, I want to take, and I'll give all three of you a chance to kind of weigh in on this, take it a little bit different directions. Let's say an issue occurs or an accident occurs. Do you see a lot of companies having the right process in place to, one, document it, but more importantly, learn from it, right? So it does not occur again. Nels, can start with you.
Sure. I think, to go and dissect and have like a forensic analysis of what happened, these are the obvious goal is to prevent it in the front end, but a lot of times what you'll see is the response with, and we'll speak from lockout tagout, is when an incident occurs, it's a reactive situation. Folks are going to look at it and they may get a fine. An OSHA fine is likely to come down if there's an event that happened due to a missed lockout. But as you move past that, you're to, if you have an event that that would occur, and let's just say it, you kind of understand a piece of the system that maybe was modified without a proper work order or something like that, where there's some hazardous energy that occurred. What we want to have built in on the QModo side here, what builds in is that, there's a feedback loop as you, run your procedures. And part of that loop is a verification step. So, as you verify, and maybe it's something that wasn't, was missed as a verification point, can be added for future. Obviously these are all points that, you would hope that are totally covered on the front end, because you wouldn't have them. There's obviously a big part of it too, that, from a insurance underwriting perspective, to have proper lockout and safety procedures in place can actually give a pretty significant underwriting advantage, in that it will, it shows that the culture is in place. And, underwriters we've spoken to, they say generally you can tell, and as Steve said, at the start of this is, you walk into a facility, you can kind of tell what's window dressing, what's a solid procedure. Underwriters can tell as well. So, you definitely want to, impress the best safety culture, which is, really the underlying thing of getting a software solution in place.
Okay, Bryce, I'll let you weigh in on that. What kind of you see from lessons learned when those issues occur, and then Steve, round us out.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think really a lot of it's, a reactive task, right? I think Nels nailed it on the head, right? In my realm, we want to be as proactive as we can, but a lot of times when you have those incidents of lockout, tagout, or safety, it's reactive, right? Now we're focused on it. It's that culture piece, right? We react to an issue instead of being proactive to correct it. And, a lot of that is those verification checks, right? A lot of these CMMS systems I've used in the past, it's just a plain check the box, right? That yes, you have locked it out, but is there verification steps in that? And that's where I think QModo is going to bring that it factor of having that verification to, proactively prevent these reactive incidents from occurring, right? So that's kind of my piece on it. I could go on and on and on, but I'll let Steve weigh in.
Sure, thanks. You typically, well, not typically, the regulation, if you read it closely, it does actually have loops that loop back in the event of a procedure failure. But what we've done in QModo is, because we're very much setting the direction, we capture who, what, when the events happen in the procedures, and if there is ever something that happens, there is a stop, and in that, then we cycle back up to the procedure maintenance piece, that there needs to be a review that happens because there was something that was changed, different, or a new finding in terms of the lockout implementation, and we call that a loop of continuous improvement. And hopefully there wasn't a bad event that happened where somebody was injured, but anything we find, there's always a natural loop back to figure out what it was and to make it correct that deviation. And we just think that looping back to the program maintenance, even though they have to stop their work, that's exactly what we should do, is stop the work if something happened. And I had a real example in my early days where in a power plant we had in those days we called it clearances, where clearances were controlled by tags, and tags were equivalent to a lock in the power industry. And then and now we had one event where the system was mechanically locked out, electrically locked out, and we had one of the startup engineers up into the fan area, and the ductwork got a gust of air from the outside where that fan started moving, and cut this engineer's neck. And look at how interesting that is, to miss that piece when you're writing a clearance, and that would be to lock and block the rotors if you're up in that area. And it wasn't done, but then now it is done whenever that area is worked on. So those little things that you learn along the way, a program of continuous improvement will just make sure that it doesn't happen again down line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example, right? Something that you potentially could not have foreseen, but you learn from it and make sure that that's now a part of it. No, great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we keep hearing about this QModo, so we're going to now have Sam kind of give a quick demo and walkthrough. But gentlemen, as we're going through, all of you, please feel free to add any color to what Sam's going to show us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sam.
Thanks, Ed. Let me share my screen. A lot of great discussion. And we've been using QModo to do things like daily rounds, checklists, equipment inspections, automating notifications, and training. So safety is similar in a lot of respects. And we're going to take a look at what is able to be done in QModo. But I wanted to highlight before we go in, so we can think about some of the ways that QModo can help mitigate or prevent some of OSHA's top 10 violations for 2023. And from that, we see that fall protection was #1, and it's been in that position for a long time. #2, surprisingly, is hazard communication, which is making sure that your people know what hazards they may be exposed to, and the information, say, on an SDS on what to do if you are exposed. #3 is ladders. And then #6 that we've been talking about is lockout, tagout. So these are all important things that we want to make sure our safety programs add some focus to be able to prevent. So can you see the home screen now? Okay, great. So what I heard from the discussion is a lot about accessibility, having access to the safety information that's in your program. And the other thing I heard a lot was, making sure that safety was down at the worker level, and that the worker had the information to be able to make the right choice to do his work safely. And so with QModo, we have unlimited storage with your subscription, as well as unlimited users. So everybody can have access to the information that's in QModo that you'd like to have access to it. So what we have here is a setup on the home screen that's safety oriented, but this home screen can be tailored to whatever your facility needs. And at the top, we've got quick access buttons, which lead to some of the things that you do in your safety program, such as hazard reporting, doing your periodic site safety inspections, compiling and reviewing a job hazard analysis with your workers, incident management. When something does happen, we give you some guides and checklists on things to do. We've got an area for training management, and then safety metrics. One of the things that OSHA wants us to do is review our safety results for the year and look at ways to improve our safety program. Under priority information, we actually take your safety program and put it into Q. And I'll show that to you here in a second. And also we have a quick link to a folder that contains the SDSs for your facility. So that #2 cited OSHA violation was hazard communication. So if I go into the safety program folder, we actually will do, and this is an example here, we upload your safety program for your facility, and then we break out your safety program goals, the hazards that you've identified for your facility, and the control plan for those hazards that you found. So employees can now just come here and take a look at the information in your program and be informed. So as we said before, a lot of times the safety program is kept in a binder or found in a directory on a file management system. But what we've done in the application now is brought that right to your employee on their phone, tablet, or PC. They're able to access your safety information.
And Sam, not only could these be PDFs, but they could be videos also, if that's what the company desired.
Yes. So when we talk about training, for each of the different procedures, like Steve was talking about for lockout, tagout, we can go ahead and video the correct procedure for locking out and tagging out a piece of equipment, so that as you're reviewing it with your team before you do it, you can all watch the video. We've got an area there with resources. If you need help with your program, we've got a lot of the OSHA resources available to help you with your program. And we have a folder with hazards that give you references to the different types of hazards that might be available. We saw that ladders were cited on the OSHA violations list. And so you can have a guide on ladder safety. And in this guide, we've got the OSHA bulletin, plus safe use of the different types of ladders that you may come into contact with doing your work. So if you haven't used extension ladders for a while, you can come in here and review the OSHA fact sheet on safe use of extension ladders. One neat thing I did find is that in QModo, we can also link out to external resources. And I found a ladder safety app that you can put on your phone that helps you with some of the technology that's in your phone to make sure that the angle that you put your ladder up and your selection criteria are right there at your fingertips. And so you can download this app and be able to adjust your ladder, select the right ladder, those kinds of things, and work safely. So an employee can't say, well, what did they say during that ladder fall protection training? They can go right to the app and get right to that information. Another thing that we looked at with falls, we've got the links and the documents for fall protection so that the worker can review the proper use of his equipment. And as Ed was saying, you could have a link to a video. And this will take you out to the site and the video so you can watch that, and it goes over some basics of fall protection. When it comes to SDS sheets, you can go ahead and upload your SDS sheets, and I've got it organized here by category, but you can just search on it. Say, I'm going to be using Windex, and I want to be able to see the SDS sheet on Windex. It's right here for you to be able to pick it up. And then in the detail section, I put a link, and it will take you right out to the SC Johnson product data page. So the employee has all the information about the hazard, as well as if he wants more information about the product, he can get that right here through the application. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that you can do within the app. How hazards are reported is usually a form or a phone call. We can create a form within QModo that allows you to report a hazard. And any employee can have access to reporting this hazard. And in the form, you'll put the building, the room or area where the hazard is, select the hazard category. And this will allow us to collect data on the types of incidents that were reported, what's the severity of that hazard, and describe the hazard. Sometimes you can go ahead and take care of the hazard yourself. So you said, were you able to correct it? Yes. If not, no. And then you can suggest a remediation. Has the location supervisor been notified of the safety concern or hazard? Yes or no. Has the maintenance team been notified of the safety concern or hazard? And then, as we've seen, you can upload a picture of the hazard or a video of the hazard. Once you hit complete task, it'll send a notification to the safety team, and the safety manager can then validate that there's a hazard and what action to be taken. If there was self-corrected, then he might not just say there's no further action necessary, but we want to catch those, that a hazard had existed and then nobody got hurt and it was able to be taken care of on the spot. But if not, then what are the remediation steps? And then the safety manager can assign the remediation to another user, and that user will get a notification of the task. And then once he's done, he would fill out the post-hazard cleanup form and show that has the hazard been neutralized, and then what steps did he take, but then also a photo or a video of the area now without the hazard. Throughout your safety program, you'll have periodic site safety inspections of your facility. And so from here, you can schedule it and you see we've got it for the week. You can click on it and it'll give you a form that you will just complete as you're walking around the facility. Did you find any slip, trip, and fall hazards? Are there any blocked or restricted access to exits? And so on. And if there are any exceptions, it will kick out a notification that there's a hazard that was found during the site safety inspection. And what happens with all these reports is they get documented inside QModo. You can PDF them. You can export it. For instance, if your risk manager wants a copy of all the site safety inspections that are done, you can go ahead and PDF it and send it to them. But if any issues are found, they immediately get turned into a task that can be assigned for somebody to take action on. We're working on a job hazard analysis module where you can describe the work that you're doing for the day and identify the hazards that would be present, either a physical hazard or a chemical hazard. And you'll be able to link, as you're building your job hazard analysis, to those areas that we saw with the hazard folder and the SDS folder. And then you can go ahead and review the job hazard analysis with your team that you built, and then have them digitally acknowledge that they've received that job hazardous analysis review. And you may also want to check on what training is required. And then there's a training management module over here where for the different typical types of training, and you could add to this list, you would just upload that person's certificate and the date they had the training and the date that they had to do a renewal. So it's right here available for you while you're managing the work. So for instance, you need a forklift operator to move a pallet for you. There's not one on your team. You can come into the app, search the certificates, and find somebody who could operate the forklift and move the pallet for you. So we talked a little bit about incidents. So usually when an incident happens, you don't have the time to go run and get a checklist. So we'll build the things inside QModo to be able to do your incident report, do your incident investigation, your incident recovery, and your OSHA site visit. If they decide to come on site, what are the things that you need to do to be prepared for that visit? Well, that was a whirlwind tour of QModo and what we're doing with helping you guys implement your safety program and make safety more accessible, safety information more accessible, and bring it down to the actual people doing the work. So I'll turn it back over to Ed.
Sam, I know we're pressed for time, but just 30 seconds, if you go to the safety metrics, just to show that what does all this mean? And as a manager, be able to have this one pane of glass. This is what happened to me through the year, the months, the incidents, everything that happened, so I can react to that.
Well, within Q, we can create reports. And if you want data organized a certain way, I use this as an example. it shows data that you've collected on incident and injuries by month on the left side. On the right side, by selecting the categories and filling out the forms, we can capture the different category of hazards, and we can see that slips and trips were our number one collected incident in the last year.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Well, yeah, we're running kind of close to the end here, but I wanted to give each one of you, Nels, Steve, and Bryce, an opportunity, just any final thoughts that you might have. So Nels, I'll start with you.
Sure, thanks, Ed. Finally, I guess putting safety into a way that makes it really easy to follow along, ensure that you're doing the right steps, but most of all, creating a culture so like it becomes part of just your daily life. It's a very critical thing for not only keeping everybody safe, but keeping the work environment a place that's very easy to operate within. So I can hand it over to Steve here next.
Thanks, Nels. And to amplify your point there is, with the best of procedures and the best of all of these things that we can bring together with QModo, and we will. Lots of visual aid, lots of training, lots of photos, lots of step-by-step. The beauty of this is it gives the managers a way to understand that their program is working. And when I say program, that's a big global thing, because we're working with one safety professional right now, and she's just like out of breath because she doesn't know if people are trained, and there's such a changing of the guard. And what about those procedures? And gee, they should have used that procedure and all these things. And if we get it to the point that it's a way of life with a company, it means that the program's working. And then all the pieces inside are just the things that people implement because the program's working. And that, to Nell's point, the way of life is going to be a real great thing. And if we can instill culture there, that program will be working well.
And Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, as a facilities director, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, this got me excited, right? I mean, it's like a multi-tool that I can have with me at snap of a button, right? The accessibility is a key function, right? Having all this at my fingertips and the people in the field's fingertips is huge. Because again, I'm going to pound this out in everybody's head, is having that information is key, right? Not being able to have to travel to 3 different offices in an emergency event that I'm going to need something to report, or a safety or investigation form. It's crucial, right? And the way that technology is going nowadays, where everything is coming more advanced with lockout tagout procedures, having something that you can just click and go over is just it's amazing. And I'm glad that QModo is starting to put the pieces together to make something like this, to make everybody more safe in the field.
Thank you, Bryce. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to all the attendees, and